Welcome everyone. This is another video in this lecture series on advertising, lesson number 2, part 2, types and categories of brand. Now in this video, we will be dealing with the specific concepts of branding, categories of branding. We will also be discussing about the types of branding and how important are brand specifically and how to create a powerful brand for that matter. Now, we will begin this discussion with the categories of brand name. Now, brand names have 4 categories. Each of the company or corporation will be at some point dealing with these kinds of brand categories. Number 1, organizations will use overt names. Now, overt names are kind of brand category wherein the organization explicitly provide what the organization is offering in the market. Now, let's say, for example, in this image that you are looking at in your screen, this is the logo of the Philippine airline. Now, by knowing that that is a logo of an airline company, of course, it would automatically give you the idea that Philippine Airlines is an airline company that belongs to the airline industry and uses airplanes in order to transport passengers from one point to the other. That is an overt name. By looking and reading merely on the name of the organization, you already know what the organization is offering to the target market. Next is implied name. Now, an implied name simply means that there is some message that is lying behind a particular name. There is a message behind a particular name. For example, this logo image that is in your screen at this particular moment, you will probably recognize that that is a logo of Palawan Express, a popular money remittance company in the Philippines, right? It helps you send and receive money from everywhere in the country. And so Palawan Express is an example of implied names. Internationally, we could use Federal Express as an example of an implied name. By the word express, meaning it implies that the organization will deliver the promise in a fast and undeniably good service. So that is an implied name. Next is a conceptual name. Now, a conceptual name is actually anchored on some concepts that is reduced into some kind of a name that eventually became the name of the organization or the brand itself. Of course, the example for this is Google. And Google is a name, a concept that were actually invented by the one who created and established Google as a company, of which Google, meaning there is 100 or thousands probably of zeros between G, the big G, and the small g, there is an unlimited zero in it, meaning when you search on Google, there is an unlimited options, unlimited answers, which in fact, of course, by experience, that is true. When you try to search on Google, you will be given millions of answers in just a fraction of a second. The competitor of Google, Yahoo, is also an example of a conceptual name, Yahoo. It is some kind of a happy and satisfied individual who at least at some point when doing a search on the internet have found an answer. So Yahoo, that is an example of a conceptual name. Next is iconoclastic. names. Now, iconoclastic names are actually kind of naming or creating some kind of an identity or an image of a brand that does not necessarily represent the product or the service being provided by a particular brand. Now, one of the best example is Apple. Well, Apple is not selling apples, right? Apple is selling electronics, meaning it is just an icon, a determinant or an identity that is attached and being considered to be an identity of a particular company, but does not represent in any kind of service or a product whatsoever within the organization. So that is an iconoclastic names. Many of the organizations in the modern landscape of business uses iconoclastic names because, you can just create your own identity even if it does not represent your product offering. As long as you can explain why is it that you're using that particular identity, or probably there is a historical basis, why is it that you're using this, or you just probably used a logo maker online, then probably that is an example of an iconoclastic category of brand name. Next is types of brands. We will be trying to talk about type of brands. Now, we start with family branding, then we will follow with brand extension, then flanker brands, co-branding, and private brands or private labels. Now, an example of family branding is the Microsoft. Microsoft Corporation have Office, Xbox, Windows, Bing, and so on. It is broadcasted and promoted in one family of products because at the end of the day, when you are using Windows, there is a probability, of course, that you will use Office. And that probability is probably around 99% of the time that you will be using Office as your tool, which of course belongs at the same time with Microsoft. And you will search on a search engine called Bing, which is also a Microsoft search engine, and Xbox being a Microsoft gaming platform. And so it is a family of brand that is under a particular umbrella, which is the Microsoft Corporation. Next is brand extension. Now, brand extension or brand stretching is a marketing strategy in which firms markets a product with a well-developed image and uses the same brand in a different product category. Now, there are kinds of stretchings, brand stretching. First is line extension, and the second one is brand extension. Now, line extension is a method by which a particular brand, example Coca-Cola, will extend its line by producing a different variation of a similar product. Different variation of a similar product, you can do line extension. Another one is brand extension, of which there is still a use of the same brand name but is spread towards different categories, like Dove. Now, Dove actually is a kind of brand that belongs to brand extension. One identity, Dove, but has many products. And that is an example of brand extension. Next is flanker brand. A flanker brand is a new brand introduced into the market by a company that already has an established brand in the same product category. Now, one of the best examples of that is P&G or Procter and Gamble. Now, Procter and Gamble have multiple brands within a particular brand category or particular product category. Now, example of that is on the category of detergents and dishwashing. So we have Joy, we have Downy, we have Tide, we have Ivory, and these particular brands are on the same category, but it does not actually bring with it the name of Procter and Gamble. They are independent brand, although they are under the banner of Procter and Gamble, but it's a totally different brand. The same also is true with Unilever and Colgate Palmolive, wherein there are several brands, individual brands in a particular product category. So if you use individual brands in a particular product category, although it belongs to one umbrella brand, it's called flanker brand. Now, next we have co-branding. Co-branding is a marketing strategy that utilizes multiple brand names on a good or service as a part of a strategic alliance. Now, co-branding have three different categories. Number one is ingredient, number two is cooperative, and number three is complementary. Now, when we speak of ingredient branding, it specifies that a particular brand is an ingredient in that particular finished product. Now, the best example for that is Intel. Now, Intel is a manufacturer of computer chips. To be specific, Intel is a manufacturer of processors. Now, almost always when you are purchasing PCs or at some point laptops that are using Windows operating system or Linux operating system, there is always and almost always a logo of Intel, and it specifies that there is an Intel inside, meaning this particular computer is using Intel as a processor. Or in other words, one of the ingredients of this particular laptop is an Intel. See? So the meaning, therefore, of ingredient branding is there is a popular brand that is allied together with a finished product manufacturer, and then that allied logo is attached to the product itself to signify that there is an assurance on the side of the customers that whatever is the desire of the customers, whether or not to purchase or not to purchase the product, could be affected by the fact that two brands cooperate and have a strategic alliance in order to provide the best product for that particular customer. And so at some point it would convince the customers, and at some point it would make the customer decide in favor of the producing company or the company that manufactures the product because of a strategic alliance, especially when brands are well designed and or that the alliance is well published and well marketed. It would create a considerable impact on the decision-making process of the customers. Next is cooperative branding. So we have an example here, the connection between MasterCard and Apple Pay, or the cooperation between PayPal and Paymaya, or PayPal and MasterCard. So that particular scenario is an example of cooperative management, meaning two brands are cooperating in order to present a linkage of their services. That because we are uniting together, there will be easy transaction between you as the user of the other side and them, the user of the other side also. Meaning it is a way of connecting two opportunities at the same time by the followings of two different brands. Next is complementary brands. Now, complementary brands is quite popular in restaurants. We will be trying to understand what complementary brands by merely looking at this particular menu from a very popular fast food chain company in the Philippines and now trying to expand worldwide, Jollibee Corporation. Now, if you look at it, there is a brand Coca-Cola that is attached to the products being sold in that particular restaurant. And so that is an example of a complementary branding, meaning when you purchase a specific meal package in Jollibee, automatically you will get a branded soda, a branded soft drink. So in that way, there is a feeling of satisfaction on the side of the customers because there is a combination of two products with two different brands that are complementing each other. There is no competition in that particular instance because the other one is a soft drinks and the other one is selling food, but they can join and merge together as a complementary product. Next is we have private brands. Now, private brands or private labels and or store brands are proprietary brands marketed by the organization or an organization and are normally distributed exclusively within the organization's outlet. Now, in the Philippines, we have SM Bonus as an example of a private label. Now, if you look at SM supermarkets, there are a lot of these particular products. Bonus. That is an example of a private brand, wherein it is exclusively manufactured for that particular company, which is an outlet or a store with the name of that particular store, in order to combat the brands that are sold within the market itself. Meaning those brands that are independent and is being sold within the supermarket have a generic counterpart, right? A generic counterpart that is sold in a form of private labels or private brands. Of course, generally with a significantly low price in comparison to individual brands. Because individual brands requires that they have to advertise and spend quite a lot of money in order to propagate the idea and educate the customer about a particular brand in order, of course, to develop brand awareness on the side of the target audience. But in case of private brands, that is no longer necessary, because at the end of the day, when customers go to the supermarkets, they are readily available there, and so there is no need for advertising, no need for marketing. Automatically, people will buy. Of course, this is considerably because of the relatively low price of these particular products. Next is a logo. Now, a logo is a graphic mark, emblem, or symbol that is used to aid to promote public identification and recognition. It is maybe at some point a kind of an abstract or a figurative design, or include a text of the name as it represents a particular mark of the company. Now, there are 4 tests of quality for logos. First, it should be recognizable. So the logo must be easily recognized. Right? So don't create a logo that is so abstract and is so hard to understand, and people will not recognize what your logo is. Next is your logo should be some kind of a familiar picture. You are using familiar identities, identities that are at some point familiar in the eyes of the target audience. It should elicit a consensual meaning among those in the firm and the target market. If the logo on the eyes of the target audience specifies quality, it should also be the meaning that is being forwarded by the firm's agents or those within the firm who created that particular logo. And it should evoke positive feeling. Now, many of the organizations that have been in the top of the hierarchy of all organizations and companies in the world actually evokes positive feelings. In fact, one of the best examples is Amazon. Now, if you look at the logo of Amazon, it's a smiling Amazon. The idea behind Amazon is that it is the largest and longest river in the world, with the most diverse flora and fauna, and it has a check mark from A to Z with a form of a smiling face. And so at that particular point, it evokes positive feeling, which of course resulted into tremendous market following. And so that's the reason why one of the best companies by market capitalization today is Amazon. Next is tips for creating or changing logos. Number one is logo is a reflection of the brand. Think about it. It is a reflection of the brand. If your logo is terribly done, it could mean in the eyes of the customers that you are a terrible brand. Creating logos require knowledge and expertise. Not everyone can create logo. Of course, you can use online free logo maker, but if you are investing billions for your organization, using online free logo maker will not give you any profit. Using professional designers. Use professional designers. Don't hesitate to pay considerable amount of money to produce professional designs. Make the logo simple. Do not complicate your logo so much that is so hard to understand. Make the logo simple. Make the logo media transferable, of which you can use it to broadcast on the social media. You can use it to broadcast on the radio, television, and it should be an easy and transferable kind of a file format. Next, we have identifying the desired brand image. When creating a program to promote a desired brand image, the marketing team first evaluates its current image. Marketers study the brand's image in order to identify its strengths, weaknesses. This helps to compare the current image with competitors. The marketing team also tries to discover how those outside of the company view of the brand. And so, in order for you to be able to identify the desired brand image, you have to determine, of course, what are your strengths and your weaknesses, and how do other people outside of the company thinks about your particular brand. And so through that, you'll be able to go to another step, that is creating the right brand image, because you already know what is the perception of people and what are your strengths and weaknesses. So you have to create the right brand image. Next is rejuvenating a particular brand image, where there is a particular instance wherein if you are an established brand, there is a deterioration of your brand following because of intense competition in the market. And so what you have to do is to rejuvenate the brand image. Rejuvenate meaning to resurrect the brand alive once again. This will help the customers rediscover the brand, offer timeless consumer value. Stay true to the original but contemporize. Stay true to the original version, but you have to innovate. Next is you have to build a community. The next thing is when you have to change the brand image, you have to be very careful in changing your brand image, because changing the brand image could literally mean the discouragement of your current customer and the probability that your target audience or target customers will not adopt it. So you have to think correctly before you change your brand image. It would be better if you will just rejuvenate, but at some point when brands can no longer stand with the competition, you really have to change it. And you have to invest considerable amount of money in order to establish that particular brand once again. In developing powerful brands or strong brands, you have to begin by discovering why consumers buy a particular brand and why they rebuy the brand. Why is it that this particular customer category continuously buying these brands? And why is it that they are loyal with this brand? And by knowing that, you will be able to try to begin developing powerful brand. And so we have to begin with stating important questions and try to answer it. Where does your brand stand now? What is your current status? What are you doing to build your brand and business? What are your brand's strengths and weaknesses? What opportunities should be pursued first? That is also a very important question. Next is ingredient required to build a powerful brand. First, you have to invest in the brand. These companies that are at the top of the branding ranks in the world invest billions of dollars just and in order to present the idea of what the brand is all about. Brand awareness. Next is, yes, create awareness. How would you create awareness? You have to invest in the brand. Offer authenticity and uniqueness. Your brand must be original and unique. Next is build trust. Deliver an experience. Make sure that your customers will be satisfied by the experience that they have with your product. You have to offer value. You have to make sure that your customers feel that there is a corresponding exchange of the money that they spend for your product. And you have to utilize the social media because that is the trend today. You have to use the social media. And not only that, you have to utilize mobile apps and advertising in the mobile phones using several platforms that would help you build a powerful brand. Of course, you have to act with responsibility with all of the strategies that you have to provide in order to create customer following. You should be responsible with all of the words that you promise, all the things that you say in relation to your brand, because at some point when you're just uttering nonsense and your customers are expecting you to produce or provide that particular level of experience, yet at the end of the day, they will be disappointed. And so you have to act responsibly. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.